Okay, we're stopping at Max Speed Cycles in Kernersville, North Carolina, getting some tires for the wheels. Wheels and tires are back from the shop. It's a bit rainy out today. I need to get these done, put on the bike, and then make sure everything is running correctly because we're going to the track tomorrow. I'm using some brake clean and a clean rag to get all the grease and oil off of the rear axle. So clean all that up. With the axle all cleaned up and dry, we're going to apply a thin coat of grease to the axle and a little bit on the inside races of the bearing. And remember, the bearing rotates on the inside on the axle, so you don't need to pack this full of grease. Just a little bit will do just fine. And using our tip from earlier, we can see the axle nut on the correct side of the bike. All of our spacers are in the spots that they need to be. So you can see how it saves us a little bit of time. And here we have our light coat of grease. That's all you need. So this pit crew wedge helps hold the wheel up, and you can align it with your axle here quite easily, so you don't have to put your foot or anything else underneath the wheel and tire to support it. So if you got one of these, use it. And if you've never seen one of these before, check them out because they're very handy. With the rear disc in the caliper lined up, we're making sure our spacer isn't bound up. We will line this up and put the axle through. A helpful tip for knowing which direction to put these blocks on the outside of the swing arm is to go around the outside and look for a little witness mark like this. That's the witness mark of the tensioning bolt, which is located here. So this mark needs to go like this to fit right in here in that space. So the axle and all the spacers are in place. Next we need to tension the chain. Then we will torque the axle nut. The BMW will have a chain slack measurement spec here on the swing arm. And when you ride on track, we tend to go a little bit more slack than what the spec is. So this is about where I like it. To properly measure this, again using your caliper, find a nice flat datum point, like in this case right off the back of the swing arm, and use the depth end of your caliper to measure the offset of the block to the back of the swing arm and make it match on both sides by adjusting your tension bolts here. And when you're finished with that, you lock it down. And you don't really need to worry about what the actual measurement is. It's all relative. You just want to make sure that this space here matches that space over there. If you have a set of calipers like this that have a locking feature on top, go ahead and use that. But as you can see, this depth here will match this depth here. And don't forget to secure your lock nuts. Just like the rear axle, we want to grease the front axle just a little bit. Front calipers went on nice and easy. Next, we got to use our torque wrench and torque the caliper bolts to 28 foot-pounds. Okay. And we will mark this with some indicator to let us know that we have indeed torqued these fasteners. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Okay, done. So that wraps it up for changing the sprockets and the chain. Nice new stuff, as well as swapping out the tires. Now, I wanted to have Q5s both front and rear, but the shop didn't have any Q5 fronts So I'm running a Q5S in the front. It's a very similar. It has extra sipes on the edge, which in a way might be a good thing because it's going to be weather like this all weekend at the racetrack, and extra sipes would help me. This will be my first time running Q5S's, so that'll be interesting. So before we wrap everything up, I'm going to clean this chain one more time and then apply a wax. As you can see, some surface rust is already beginning to develop on the pins, so we'll knock that out. To clean and lube the chain, you just need a few simple things. You'll recognize this from earlier. This is my chain cleaner, and this chain is already brand new, and not a lot of dirt's going to come out of that, but typically you want to put something down because this is just going to make a mess on a chain that's got miles and street grime and dirt and grease and everything in it. After I scrub it with the cleaner and a brush, you wipe it down, wipe all the residual grease off of it, and then apply a liberal coating of the chain wax, both on the inside and outside of the links, and that'll form a nice protective barrier. So let's get started. First, just rotate the chain and apply some cleaner and go all the way around. This helps break up some of the grease. You can even watch it kind of come off the links as you go. You can see we're already right back around where we started, so we can stop doing that. Take your scrub brush, your three-sided brush. Let's put the kickstand down, get out of the way. And get in there. Just give it a nice light scrub. Next, take your clean, lint-free rag and always go away from the sprockets. Like, you don't want to come this way because you don't want to accidentally get your fingers stuck in the sprocket, and that's no fun. So let's go the other direction like this. Okay, let's go ahead and rinse it. That looks really good. We're going to apply a coat of the wax to the chain after we wiped it off. I'm sure you don't get this on your tires. Should go without saying, but you never know. Get the outside links. You want to get on the middle, on the inside, get everywhere. One last thing I'm going to do before loading this up into the van is make some adjustments to my suspension. So this bike has always felt quite soft to me, so I'm going to be adding some preload in the rear, and I've already added a little bit of preload in the front, located here. We'll see how that runs. I will throw a zip tie on the fork so I can note how much travel I'm using, and then adjust accordingly by either adding or removing preload. Like I said, that's pretty much all you can do on this bike with these forks.